No, peace up! No, he can't! I have half a mind to ban you from the Discord server for even suggest... What's that, Tom? He's a patron. Could Ramsay Bolton, Snow, whatever, be redeemed? That is today's topic. Like the Joffrey video, we'll be posing the hypothetical from the point we meet the Bastard of Bolton. But unlike the Joffrey video, we won't be looking into redeeming Ramsay's competence. Because, well, I don't really think it's in question. Ramsay may be a cruel, sick, depraved fuck, but he has shown himself to be highly intelligent and cunning, with a keen mind for war and espionage. He's not quite Tywin Lannister or his own father, but he looks set to be a capable player when it comes to playing the Game of Thrones on morally bankrupt bastard mode, if he's given more guidance and learns to relegate, shall we say, his worst impulses to the vaults of discretion. Instead, we're going to be looking at just Ramsay's morality, and if there's any hope, which... Tall order, P-sub. Very tall. Ramsay is a very dark fellow. This is someone whose life is measured not in love, honor, duty, and sacrifice, but in the premeditated practices of deception, manipulation, and cruelty. I mean, just look at his rap sheet. This is just the stuff we know about, by the way. And it's not exactly a list of virtuous deeds, is it? These acts are fucking vile enough on their own, but further underscored by another sinister layer which is found in the Bastard of the Dreadfort's motivations. For Ramsay, much of these acts are not done in service to a cause, nor even out of a thinly veiled sense of ruthless pragmatism. It's all just a game to Ramsay, in which he is the games master, setting the rules of play and then enforcing them, rewarding and penalizing as he sees fit. His victims are not objectives. There is not much practical purpose in much of what he does, but merely playthings to serve his own twisted personal amusement and feed into what is clearly an innate desire for power and domination over others. It's needless cruelty. Even when Ramsay operates with purpose, the way by which he accomplishes tasks he's set to tells you a lot about what sort of person he is. He leans on espionage, infiltrating from within, or ambushing from positions of parley. These are perfectly valid tactics to employ in war, by the way. I'm not trying to say they're not, and Ramsay is good at it, but it doesn't diminish the deceitful, manipulative, and dishonorable nature required to employ them. Especially when you realize Ramsay utilizes these tactics not when the odds are against him, like Robb Stark, all seems lost and the situation is desperate, like Stannis, or when honorable means have failed, like you might see from someone like Jon Snow, but always they are his first resort. Again, not just deceitful, but needlessly so. It really does beggar. Could you redeem the morality of such a man? Before we pose the question, let's look into why Ramsay is the way he is by diving into his psychology. As usual, here's our disclaimer, but with a little update, so please read it before you join us in busting out your armchairs, pipes, and tweed jackets. Done reading? Okay, let's go. Ramsay clearly has ASPD. I don't think that's in doubt. If you were to run him through Hare's revised checklist, he would no doubt score the 25 to 30 necessary points most countries use as a benchmark for red flagging strong psychopathic and antisocial behavior. And just look at the guy's standout traits. He ticks nearly every fucking box. It's not really in question. The only variable element would be what pop psychology side of the scale would he fall into? Psychopath or sociopath? I stated in our Ramsay vs. Gregor video that Ramsay would fit the profile of a criminal sociopath. But it's probably worth mentioning that Ramsay also ticks an awful lot of boxes for a psychopath too. To the point it's almost 50-50. I believe the scales only tip slightly more towards sociopathy because of his sadism for the sake of it, something psychopaths don't really do, his complicated feelings for his father and Reek, which seems to suggest there is a dash of effective empathy there, his deep insecurity over his bastard status, which suggests he does have the capacity for anxiety, again, something not really observed in psychopaths, his reactive impulsivity, I mean, he murders a guy out of nowhere for simply referring to him as a bastard, and the argument that his upbringing with a likely highly resentful, considering the circumstances of his conception, and potentially abusive and manipulative single mother, and then the rest of his rearing performed by Roose and Reek, seems to have made him who he is, rather than his being born that way. However, counter-argument. Roose, his father, ticks a lot of boxes for psychopathy, and not that many for sociopathy. And there's arguments psychopathy is, or at least can be, genetic and hereditary. And even before Roose decided to take in the unruly little shit, he was notably an unruly little shit, suggesting that he may just have been born with a genetic predisposition towards being a rule-flouting little fucker. He's also reputed to be totally without fear, and has yet to show us a typical fight-or-flight fear response. Something often demonstrated, albeit to a lesser degree than is typical in sociopaths, but generally completely alien to psychopaths, whom often remain calm, or in some cases, get excited when their fear mechanisms are propped, something that I think is more applicable to Ramsay. His self-preservation instincts also lean into this strong mix of both. Sometimes they can seem incredibly refined and pragmatic, like that of a psychopath, demonstrated most aptly with how he evades death by swapping clothes with Reek and using him as a decoy. Other times, he displays the reckless abandon and lack of concern for personal safety of a sociopath, as he is noted to savagely throw himself at his enemies in combat with little regard for self-preservation. So, I guess it's kind of more accurate to say, while Ramsay might be just a dash more of a sociopath on paper, so maybe the blame lies a little more on nurture than nature, you can argue he's both, and not many would question it. A mix of the two is not unheard of either. You do get psychopaths with sociopathic tendencies and sociopaths with psychopathic behavior patterns, because, well, at the end of the day, we are talking about the exact same personality disorder, with the two terms merely being informal pop psychology subcategories for defining the spectrum and variance of behavior. Usually, it's strongly one side and then just one or two outlying traits. However, you do get those rare few like Ramsay that tick almost all of column A and almost all of column B. These are the individuals that tend to be the most dangerous, and by far the most likely to make the cut for stepping past that line that differentiates the societally integrated from the criminal. But bringing things back to Ramsay, being this strong mix of both is highly detrimental to his redeemability. Ticking almost every box for both sides of the scale doesn't bring a nice counterbalance like you think it would when addressing the middle of a dichotomy. In fact, quite the opposite. It actually doubles the darkness on either side. I know it probably goes without saying, but it's, shall we say, at the very least concerning to be a mix of dangerously calculating, proactively predatory and manipulative, and yet also utterly capable of unpredictable, spontaneous, reactive volatility, paired with a grandiose sense of self-importance, a total lack of conscience, and barely, but possibly also no effective empathy whatsoever. To really understand how dangerous this personality type is, one only need look to the company Ramsay is in. Voldemort and Palpatine both fit the bill for criminal psychopaths with strong sociopathic tendencies, and like Ramsay, almost close enough to make it an even split. Would you consider either of those two redeemable? Because, well, that's the depths of darkness Ramsay is in. Now, this is already dodgy territory. Whether he was born this way or made with his upbringing, or what is most likely a strong mix of both, his personality does not lend itself towards natural inclinations of benevolence. But then the internal can be compounded sevenfold by the external. Give a psychopath or sociopath an inch, and they won't take a mile, they'll take a fucking light year. This is why a big part of rehabilitating them involves getting them to self-recognize when they are being manipulative or pushing boundaries. Or, for the more resistant, a consistent, persistent, hey that rhyme Tom, check on their shitty actions. Usually from an authority figure they either like, admire, or at minimum respect. If you can do this early on enough and with consistency, there's some degree of hope. The problem is Ramsay has not only never been checked on his crapulence as a person, he's been outright enabled by the one authority figure he will willingly capitulate to. Ramsay's relationship with Roose is complicated. The bastard both desperately craves Roose's approval and acknowledgement as a true-born son, but at the same time resents him heavily for using Ramsay's bastard status to put him in his place and successfully dominate him. And if there's one thing people with ASPD really don't fucking like, it's any attempt to control them. But make no mistake, Roose is the only person Ramsay remotely respects and fears in his own way, and as such of whom is the sole entity who holds some semblance of control over him. Now, fair's fair to Roose, he disapproves of and chastises the shit out of Ramsay for the stuff even he finds distasteful. But he doesn't stop it or check it, leaving Ramsay to develop the impression that he can do what he likes, when he likes, so long as he doesn't get in his father's way. It's the final nail in the coffin, because there's no consequences for Ramsay's behaviour. At least Robert gave Joffrey a good clout for the kitten debacle. And I mean, how bad's it got to be that we're using Robert fucking Baratheon as a positive example of parenting? I could go on all day with this, but I'd rather round back to the question so I can stop talking about this piece of shit. Thinking about him genuinely makes my skin crawl. Could we redeem Ramsay from the point we meet him? No. The reason there's hope for Joffrey is because he is a child. The long and the short of it is that Joffrey isn't technically a sociopath. He's a sociopath in the making. There's strong evidence that Joffrey's antisocial behavior traits are a product of his environment. And while he has done some immensely crappy, and in some cases disturbing things, he's still kind of wading in the shallow end of the pool when it comes to outright moral evil. This, combined with his young age, means there's still some time to set him straight if you implemented extreme enough measures. All kids display antisocial traits to some degrees, and while I would certainly back the horse that says Joffrey is in the excessive territory, enough to earn him that conduct disorder diagnosis, because he hasn't fully finished developing, like all children, he has a chance to grow out of it if steered away hard enough. Hence why there is a separate diagnosis for younguns in first place. Ramsay, on the other hand, has dived headfirst into the deep end of the pool of moral evil and swam in it for so long he's more wrinkly than Bloodraven's ballbag. He's 20 at youngest and 28 at oldest, and been a vile shit long enough, it's likely ingrained and solidified as a part of his core being. His brain will have finished or nearly finished developing. Without getting too sciencey, once you hit late adolescence, especially 18 and upwards, your brain makes some permanent irreversible changes to certain neural and impulse responses. Things like the abnormal dopamine reflexes and hormonal imbalances like excessive testosterone and suppressed serotonin levels observed in those with ASPD, they kind of stick. This is why most psychologists and psychiatrists feel comfortable making a formal diagnosis once someone hits age 18, because at this point, it's likely to be with that person for life. This biological, I guess you could call it hardwiring, combined with the long-term environmental factors of his neglectful, loveless upbringing and the fact he's never been truly reined in, equivalates to a next to zero chance Ramsay would even have the capacity, let alone show the desire, to better himself, because he's now, in a sense, programmed to be this way and to get his kicks from it. A huge issue with sociopaths and psychopaths and getting them to actually want to change is that their condition often comes with a hefty dose of narcissism as part of the deal. What's a big issue with narcissists? They don't think anything's wrong with them, and it is in fact everyone else who is wrong in their perceptions. When this is combined with antisocial traits like cunning, pathological lying, and manipulation, what tends to manifest is a superficial charm and the ability to project a facade of self-improvement. If you captured and put this fucking twat in a compromising situation, you could no doubt convince yourself you've persuaded Ramsay to see the light and show you he's capable of deep, meaningful change. At least up until he's no longer in that compromising situation and reverts straight back to his old ways, exposing his redemption as nothing more than the cunning ruse to get out of captivity it always was.
You sneaky fucker, I thought we were friends, Ramsay!
This is why you can't even try the desperate times call for desperate measures approach and send him to the wall so he can atone. Because Ramsay has been given the ground to hone and refine his cunning, manipulative, and deceptive nature, which, when combined with his respectably high levels of intelligence, has allowed him to develop the ability to effectively mask. If you send Ramsay to the wall to atone for his crimes, he'll give the impression he's assimilated and turned over a new leaf, at least on the surface, but then one of three things is likely going to happen. 1. He relegates his twisted behavior to the shadows where he doesn't think he'll get caught. That's probably best case scenario. 2. He escapes the first true chance he gets and goes back to his flaying and you-know-whatting across the north. Or 3. If you want to give the watch a really bad hand, he uses his cunning manipulative behavior to slowly undermine, destabilize, and ultimately usurp the leadership of the watch. And if this did come to pass, you'd better hope someone smart, strong, and callous enough sees through the mask and makes moves to counter it by taking Ramsay's head in his sleep. Come on, John. There's Longclaw. Do what must be done, lad. Come on. He's trying to take your fucking position. Even if you were to break the rules laid out in the beginning of the video and take him at a much younger age and foster him with more positive role models like Ned, Stannis, Aemon, Edmure, Mance Rayder, etc., this might have some degree of positive impact. At the very least, there might be less enabling and a bit more checking, and that's always a good thing, but it is rolling the dice. Just how much of Ramsay is nature versus nurture? Definitely way more blurry than Joffrey, to say the least. To top this off, Ramsay has not a single redeeming quality that you could try to place more emphasis on to steer him right. Not once has he showed us a trait that might resemble compassion, that you could then combine with an attribute that you could then mold into a positive aptitude. Even Joffrey. Fucking Joffrey! Has a strong, albeit twisted love for his mother, a keen interest in history, he's light on his feet, suggesting he could be a good swordsman, and he has a strong desire to be like whom he thought was his father, whom, while a drunken mess in the main series and the last person you'd want for a role model, yes, Liam is capable of slagging off Big Bobby B, was, at least at one point in time, a strong and noble warrior king. And that's the Robert Joffrey wanted to be. It's not much, but it is something in favor of the incest goblin. All, and I mean all of Ramsay's actions are motivated by sadism, cruelty, malicious deceit, needless brutality, and a desire for power and status, all taken to extremes so excessive, it makes him uniformly monstrous. He's pure fucking evil. There's just no getting around that. But P-Sub wants to hear us squirm, Tom, so let's try for something. The most redemptive thing you could probably do with Ramsay would be to sick him on those whom you could make a half-decent argument at least deserve it. Gregor Clegane, Tywin Lannister, Walder Frey, Euron Greyjoy. Send Ramsay after these guys. I mean, this is still morally grey as fuck. But these wankstains at least have done things to earn a contestant's spot in his games over innocent people. And thus, Ramsay would be doing some good for the world by using his evil to punish other evil. But getting him to willingly do something that is genuinely noble...
What?
is kind of laughable. For most of us, he could single-handedly vanquish the others at this point, and he would still be in the red regarding his morality accounts. I want to finish by saying, you should never say anyone is beyond redemption. Miracles may happen, but for most sane people, there is a line that denotes a point of no return. And for Ramsay, realistically, he's long since crossed it. And that's our take. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace up. For the rest of our viewers, let us know in the comments. Do you think there's hope for Ramsay at the point we meet him? Or do you think, like we do, he is totally beyond all notions of atonement?